we'll start out. Tell me a little bit about yourself, your background.
I'm Sean Smith, and I'm a assistant professor at Lehman College. And before that, I was in industry for about 8 years, and I worked for a number of for-profit and non-profit companies. And in those roles, I was either a accounting sort of focused person, or I was serving in a financial analyst sort of type role. So I've sort of moved up from a basic sort of accountant point of view to a financial analyst, and then now sort of to the academic sort of a thought leader, hopefully, type role.
That's pretty cool. So tell me about the transition between each phase and why you decided, I guess, to jump from the traditional accounting route to financial analyst and then ultimately to your position right now.
Sure. So if I was to sort of summarize the overall sort of trend in there, it would be that I always wanted to have a role or a title that would allow me to have an impact, right, on the actual company, right? Because at the end of the day, whether it's a for-profit, whether it's a nonprofit, or whether it's a academic entity, the overall mission is to have an impact. And then sort of a part B to that is to be effective in the, I think, usage of the resources that are available to the company or the entity. And so really the whole underlying sort of motivation from just my point of view was to have an impact on how the business is actually operating, or to be able to be part of that conversation and to have an impact at that level.
From your standpoint, how did you see that progress? Did you actually see that you're being able to sit at the table and have these discussions?
So I think that every individual will have a moment or a period of, I think, being frustrated in their current role, or if they have a boss that is not maximizing them to their full worth or their full value. But for me, it was really just a matter of I was always sort of keeping my eye open for the next opportunity. Meaning that if I was in a current role and I was doing well and everything is going well, I was always looking for that next opportunity for your growth, whether it was in the firm that I was at, or if it was outside of the firm that I was at. Basically, it was mainly focused on really where I could maximize my own talents and, I think, energy, sort of add, I think, value to the institution and to myself.
So as an assistant professor, you have some of these discussions with students on, career advice, where they see themselves.
So, I mean, when I was talking to students, right, and I do this all the time, what I really try to hammer home is that, one, you have to be willing to change and to adapt and sort of learn new things, right? Because as we both know, the industry is evolving at a fast rate, right? We have blockchain, we have AI, we have automation, we have all of these trends and forces that are really outside of our control that are impacting the industry in which we're trying to send our students out into. So the top, I think, attribute, I'd say, is to be adaptable. And then point number two is to really be open to constructive feedback, meaning that the first time that you are trying anything, it will not be perfect. And then being open to that feedback will help you grow as a individual and as a member of the field.
You mentioned about blockchain technology and a lot of the upcoming trends in accounting. So how do you prepare students, I guess, meet the expectations of partners in accounting firms and different industries that they may go into? How do you prepare students to face those issues?
So I think that at the sort of high level, it's important to emphasize that I think whether it is AI or if it's going to be a blockchain tool, that all of these tools and trends are just that, right? Tools. And that it's up to the individual who is actually in the field to be able to maximize the individual tools to help them and the firm. I mean, building on that the individual tools or the items that are hot topics right now are probably not going to be hot topics in 2 years.
Mhm.
So I'd say that from the role of a educator, it's more important to sort of hammer home the basic understanding
Mhm.
and the fundamentals of the tools and the opportunities that are inherent in this tool, as
Mhm.
opposed to emphasizing one tool or a trend over another, right? Because as we both know, any individual item or tool or sort of tech trend
Mhm.
is hot now, but in 2 years it will be out of date, or it'll be obsolete.
So I guess what you're saying is that the fundamentals are always going to be there, and that the tools are going to be evolving. So, in an educational perspective, you want to focus more on the fundamentals and things that they should be looking for instead of the actual tools they'll be using.
Yes, I would agree, right? Because I always try to sort of talk about this like anything else, like a sport. If we're talking on, I think football, right? The blocking and tackling, right? Those fundamental sort of building blocks
Mhm.
of any team. And in the accounting industry, the individual tools or the trends, whether it's AI, whether it's blockchain, or some other trend, I
Mhm.
mean, those names will obviously change over time. But sort of having that understanding and that analysis, right? Being able to analyze the tools that are out there and to then take that information in those tools and to help the management, whether it's your internal management or a external client, being able to help them make better choices, I believe, is the real value add out there.
So, from a generational standpoint, do you see trends within the educational field between teaching millennials to teaching Gen Z to teaching the next generation after that? Or are the fundamentals still the same?
I think that it's important to, I think, acknowledge the fact that every individual and every age bracket is
Mhm.
going to learn differently, and that every individual will be more or less, I think, situated to learning in an online or a in person or a hybrid environment.
Mhm.
Now, with all of that said, I do think it's important that as educators that one, we do take advantage of these tools out there to help us, I think, put some of the material online to help our students learn more online outside of the classroom,
Mhm.
and two, to help make the courses more interactive in nature, right? To sort of move, I think, from the straight, I think, lecture to a more interactive, I think, ongoing conversation and dialogue. And I only emphasize that because I do think that that more interactive model is more reflective of what actually happens in the workforce.
And I hear a lot of complaints between, I guess, those in industry. They always say that there's a disconnect between those in academia and those in the profession. So I guess you're saying is that there should be kind of a bridge in between where you have the fundamentals being taught. You know, debits and credits are always going to be debits and credits, but also you have the application approach of things they're going to see in actual work life.
Absolutely. I mean, right. So the basics aren't going to change, right? There is always going to be a income statement and a balance sheet and some cash flow information. But sort of how we get to that information is always going to be changing and updating. So I don't think that it's a matter of sort of sort of updating how we teach those, I think, fundamental concepts. But
Mhm.
it's a sort of more of how we actually teach our students how to actually do it uh, in the workforce, right? Because there are all of these tools and platforms and ERPs out there that are, constantly evolving and changing. So it's really on us as educators and as academics to make sure that our students understand, one, sort of the basic building blocks,
Mhm.
and then two, how to actually do and apply these sort of building blocks in the field.
So I guess let's talk a little bit about yourself and
Okay.
some things that you're interested right now. You talked about thought leadership. So what are some areas that you're really focusing on and you're speaking out about?
So I would say probably the two areas that I'm focusing on currently are, one, sort of the integration of some non-financial information into how companies analyze and report their external uh, results,
Mhm.
right? Because I think we all know that the operational information and results of a company do have a big influence on how they perform, right? From a earnings per share point of view and and all the rest.
Mhm.
So a big area that I'm interested in and that I am focused on is really analyzing how companies sort of analyze this information internally and then report this information out to their external shareholders. And then two, a area that I'm focused on and that I'm talking about is sort of really how the influx of tech into the field, right? Whether it's in audit, tax, whether it's advisory services, or for individuals working for companies, how the influx of AI, automation, and tech tools such as a blockchain platform are influencing the field going forward.
So adding on to that, I hear a lot of talk within the industry and outside the industry about blockchain and how it's going to disrupt the industry and it's going to eliminate the need for auditors and accountants, and there's no IRS anymore because everything's going to be verified. So what are your thoughts about that?
I think an important point to sort of get across right up front is that I think blockchain is a excellent tool, but that it is just a tool. And that it's up to the individuals who are actually involved in the process to, I think, maximize the impact of that tool, right? And that too, I mean, I think that the advances in automation, AI, and blockchain will, I think, have an impact on the entry-level roles in the field, but that by automating these sort of lower-level roles, that it is going to free up auditors and accountants to sort of work on higher level roles, right? To add, I think, more value to our clients and to ourselves as a field. So it's a sort of trade-off, right? Because on the one hand, we're going to have to learn and to update ourselves. Two, that by updating ourselves and by automating some of the lower level roles and items, that we are going to be more able to add some value to our clients in a real and meaningful way.
And I guess they made the same argument years ago about, QuickBooks and all these online softwares, and cloud accounting was the big trend, and this eliminate bookkeepers and whatnot. But if you look at it, the functions are always the same. It's how you get the numbers into the books have significantly reduced the time, but accountants have made up with it with higher level services. Definitely going on that point, what do you think is the next trend going forward, whether it be in audit or accounting or tax?
I mean, what I would say is that really, if you're in the accounting field, I would say probably two things. One is going to change and evolve, right? I think faster than any of us think, including you and I right here, right? It's going to evolve and change and really transform into something that is different than is currently out there. And that two, that even though all of that is happening, all of these changes, automation, and all the rest are going to open the door for more opportunity, right, for accountants and CPAs and individuals who are working in industry to add some real value. What I always emphasize, right, to my students or to people that I'm talking to is that the real value is not in the information or in the actual numbers. It's in the capability to actually analyze the individual numbers and to help the people who are actually running the business understand the numbers and sort of the implications that those numbers will have on their business.
So a further question would be, what advice would you give young accountants, say for example, someone who just graduated, about how their career is going to look versus someone who's a partner retiring?
So actually probably I would give both parties the same sort of top level advice, is that within the next 5 years, your roles and your duties are going to change, right? But for a individual who is just entering the firm or the industry, I would say be open to learning new ideas, to learn to experiment with new platforms and with new tech tools, right? I mean, not everything will always work out, but every time that you learn something new, you are going to add some value to yourself. And then from a partner point of view, I'd say, listen, sort of your main point of concern is having a firm that is going to be actually viable in the future after you are gone,
Mhm.
And in order to actually have that happen, you are going to have to build out new lines of business, one,
Mhm.
and then two, have individuals in the firm that are able to actually execute on these lines of business, consulting, advisory items, and all the rest. So it's important to one, invest in the current training of your current individuals, and two, to always be sort of thinking about some new items and new lines of business that could help you after you are gone. Because I do know that the accounting field is going to be impacted, I think, quite severely by the number of boomers that are going to be moving out of the field and into retirement. So I do think that is a sort of high level concern that each partner in every firm should be thinking about.
All right, so one more high level question. This one might be a little out there, but
Okay.
let's say the most futuristic version that you think accounting will be in the next 10 or 20 years. What's your future of accounting?
Okay, so the future of accounting, sort of the most futuristic version that I can think of, would be that, okay, so you would walk into a room and you would have all of the information and all of the data, right? The income statement, the balance sheet, cash flow information, all of that is done already. And
Mhm.
sort of the role that I would play, or that anybody else would play as a CPA or as an accountant, is that our role is to really, one, analyze that information, or to really understand what that information means. And then two, it would be to really be able to communicate the implications of
Mhm.
this information to our management partners. So basically, it would be sort of a part A, analyzing the information coming out of our systems,
Mhm.
and then two, we're being able to sort of link, right, the information coming out of those systems to the actual business, and to, I think, build that bridge. And
Uh-huh.
I think that if an accounting individual could do that, or a individual in the field is able to actually do that, to, I think, build that bridge, that they are going to be in excellent shape going forward.
So you would say that it's more of a consulting and advisory standpoint, less than, I guess the word would be compliance.
Sure.
No longer will you have to go through and comb through all this information, make sure everything's right. That you're going to walk in the room, everything's going to be right to begin with because of blockchain and all that other good stuff. So you're going to look at it more of an analytical perspective.
I wouldn't say that everything's going to be right to begin with, right? I mean, because there are always going to be errors, right? So that's off the bat. But I would agree with you, right? That sort of over time, sort of the role of a CPA or of an accountant is going to move more from a compliance-based role to a more advisory or a higher level role, right? To be able to help the business managers make better choices on the business and in certain or on certain items, right? So I would agree with you on, is that the role of a CPA is going to move more from a compliance based to more of a higher level based, right? Sort of managing the business, I think, going forward. And all of that is, I think, being driven by the automation. We have AI and we have blockchain influencing how we're doing our jobs going forward.
And then one last small question. What is your favorite book right now?
What is my favorite book?
Yeah, accounting based book.
Accounting based book.
Yeah. Something about the industry, or I don't know if people read accounting books.
I mean, there aren't too many accounting books out there that are like interesting to most people.
Yeah.
Um, what I would say is that probably the most current book that I finished and that I enjoyed thoroughly was The Rooster Bar by John Grisham. And that it's, I think, a timely book, and it does hit on a lot of the items that are, I think, prominent right now in the marketplace. So I thoroughly enjoyed it,
Mhm.
and I thought that it was a good blend between, I think, financial items and sort of the fiction items that all of us enjoy so much.
Well, it was really nice talking to you. So,
Absolutely, my pleasure.
where can people find out more about you? Do you have a website or some information you want to give out?
Sure. So I'd say probably the best places to, I think, find out about me is that I'm on Facebook, I'm on LinkedIn, and I'm on Twitter. And then also I do have a column each week on Inc.com. It is called Common Sense Finance. I encourage you all to check it out.